You're not going to believe this. But the fastest road-going vehicle in the world back in 1898 wasn't a car. It wasn't even a motorcycle. It had 3 wheels, a single-cylinder engine, weighed less than a fridge, and looked like something your neighbor would throw away during spring cleaning. But that machine, known as the 1898 Dion-Bouton Tricycle, did something wild. It flipped the script, it embarrassed bigger, louder machines, and it became so influential, engineers across Europe copied it shamelessly. This little oddball started the motorcycle craze, raced faster than most cars at the time, and introduced an engineering breakthrough that even Jaguar and Alfa Romeo would later use. Oh yes, there are secrets buried inside this little French rocket. And today we're pulling back the curtain on all of them. But real quick, if this wild ride already has your curiosity racing, smash that subscribe button like you're kickstarting a stubborn old bike. Just once, but with feeling. Now let's crank the engine and dive in. And stay tuned, because later in this video, we'll reveal how this tiny tricycle once sparked a revolution that made modern motorcycles possible. The Dion-Bouton Tricycle wasn't just a cool invention. It was a response to chaos, confusion and curiosity in the late 19th century. Back then, inventors across Europe were throwing everything at the wall: steam engines, electric motors, coal-powered carriages, even wind-powered cars. Spoiler, most of it failed miserably. But one wealthy Frenchman, Count Jules Albert de Dion, wasn't interested in just tinkering. He wanted performance. He teamed up with Georges Bouton and Charles Trepardou, 2 engineering geniuses who originally worked on steam vehicles. Their early cars were essentially rolling kettles on wheels. But by 1895, gasoline had entered the chat. So in 1898, the trio launched something radically different. 3 wheels, open frame, 1 seat, rear-mounted gasoline engine. Chain drive system sounds simple now, but at the time, it was madness. The Dion tricycle looked like a Victorian baby stroller, if that baby had a need for speed. And just wait till you hear what that tiny engine could actually do. Let's talk numbers, because even though this tricycle was small, its stats were no joke. Engine, single-cylinder 138cc air-cooled power output, 0.75 to 1.25 horsepower top speed, 30 miles per hour, 48 kilometers per h. Ignition, hot tube, later updated to electric ignition. Transmission, direct belt drive or chain, depending on model weight, around 8100 kilograms. Okay, I know what you're thinking. 1.25 horsepower? That's less than my lawn mower. Yes, but this machine was light. It didn't need much to take off. The power-to-weight ratio was amazing for the time. And get this, it even had a working throttle and clutch, while most other vehicles were just guessing and praying. De Dion's engine design became so good, it was literally licensed to hundreds of other companies. By 1901, their factory was pumping out 400 engines per month, and many of them were used by other automakers to build their own vehicles. This wasn't just a tricycle anymore, it was a movement. But here's where it gets even more exciting, because beneath that quirky little frame was a hidden innovation that car engineers still use to this day. Let's nerd out a bit, because this is the part where the Dion-Bouton Tricycle earns its legendary status, the Dion axle. This wasn't just a technical footnote, it was a suspension system way ahead of its time. Unlike traditional live axles, which were bulky and clunky, the Dion axle separated the drive components from the suspension movement. That meant better handling, smoother ride, less wheel hop, improved stability at speed. In other words, the Dion axle gave this tricycle Formula One aspirations back when people were still riding horses to work. And that same axle design, it showed up later in cars like the Alfa Romeo Alfetta, Jaguar XJ, and even Lotus race cars, all from a 3-wheeler in 1898. But this innovation wasn't just for comfort, it helped the tricycle dominate early motorsport. And that part of the story is even crazier. The Dion-Bouton Tricycle wasn't built to race, but that didn't stop it from winning. By 1899, people started modifying these trikes for racing competitions, stripping them down, tuning the engine and letting loose on dirt roads. And they were fast. So fast, in fact, that they regularly beat 4-wheeled competitors. One famous rider, Count Gaston de Chasseloup-Laubat, used a modified de Dion engine to break the land speed record, reaching 39.24 miles per hour in 1898. That may not sound like much today, but at the time, it was like hitting light speed. These races weren't just for fun. They helped validate gasoline power over steam. So, yeah, this tricycle didn't just race. It helped decide the future of propulsion. And the racing victories did something else too. They kick-started an entire industry. It's no exaggeration to say the Dion-Bouton Tricycle is the father of the motorcycle. The trike's layout, engine behind the rider, chain drive, direct throttle, was basically the first working prototype of a motorcycle. It inspired companies like Peugeot, Ariel, NSU, and Royal Enfield to begin building their own two-wheeled machines. In fact, early motorcycles looked so much like the Dion trike, they were often called Dion types. The Dion-Bouton's engine became the engine for anyone who wanted to build something fast, and that influence went global: Europe, the US, even Japan. From quirky tricycle to world domination. But of course, like every legend, this machine would eventually fade into the shadows. By the 1910s, more powerful cars with four wheels and enclosed cabins began to dominate. The tricycle, once the king of the road, became a quirky relic, but it never really disappeared. Collectors, museums and vintage racers kept the Dion-Bouton Tricycle alive. Some restored models still run today, and they fetch upwards of $50,000 at auction. And if you've ever been to a vintage motor rally in Europe, you might have seen one puttering along like it's late for work in 1901, still alive, still running, still grumpy about traffic. Today it's recognized not just as a tricycle, but as a pioneer. An engineering marvel, and quite possibly the most influential vehicle you've never heard of. So the next time you hear the roar of a Ducati or the whine of a Formula One car, or even see your neighbor's kid riding a scooter, remember this. None of it would exist without a tiny three-wheeled machine from 1898. The Dion-Bouton Tricycle may have looked ridiculous, but it was revolutionary. It proved that small ideas, when built with vision, can create a massive impact. It didn't just ride into history. It drove it. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like this video. And if you love strange machines with big stories, make sure to subscribe to our channel. We've got more hidden legends coming your way. Until next time, stay curious, ride safe, and maybe give your old tricycle a little more respect.